You're listening to the #1 podcast for nonprofit leaders, getting your nonprofit fully funded. This is the Fundraising Masterminds Podcast. Well, welcome back to the Fundraising Masterminds Podcast, where we discuss practical biblical principles of all things nonprofit. I'm Jason Galasinski, your host, and with me, Jim Dempsey, my co-host.
Hey, Jason.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We are looking forward to discussing all things nonprofit, and today we are getting into marketing. This is part 3 of our marketing series. So
we're going to wrap up our series today.
Yeah, today we're going to be talking about segmenting in your direct mail.
And target marketing, absolutely.
So if you haven't watched or listened to the first one, definitely go to YouTube, search for Fundraising Masterminds, or you can look us up on a podcast platform and search for the marketing series. But our first episode in this series was about the myths of social media and how social media really fits into our marketing strategy, really. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of segued that down. I was talking about a funnel,
right,
and how, social media is really part of a bigger funnel. And then as we get down into it, and we are able to collect emails, we're able to collect phone numbers, we're able to collect addresses, we really want to start doing direct mail. Mm-hmm. And as we start talking about direct mail, we were really talking about how direct mail is a lot more effective because we don't have the algorithm getting in our way, right? Every single email goes to the individual. Every single piece of paper I send in the mail goes to that address, right? But it really boils down to the content now at this point. So now the delivery is more effective. But episode 2, we talked about the content.
Yeah.
And what should be in our messaging? How do we get people to actually engage with our marketing material? So we talked about the importance of hook, story, and offer. And if you want to learn more about that, definitely go check out that thing, because we've got a whole episode where we deep dived into hook, story, offer. Yeah. But this episode, we're going to be getting into segmenting, right? And so segmenting is a very important piece of marketing because we want to be reaching the right people.
Yeah.
We don't want to send 10,000 letters out
to the wrong people.
To the wrong people, right? Because that gets very expensive, right? And we don't want to blast out 100,000 emails to people who are just going to unsubscribe.
Right.
So, Jim, I have a question for you.
Yes.
And I want to know about segmenting.
Right.
I want to know, number one, how do I even know what I don't know?
Right.
I don't even know what segmenting is. So just tell me what I should be doing in terms of segmenting, just 101.
Yeah, well, segmenting is a big part of target marketing, and it makes sense that you want to go to people that care about your organization. Mm-hmm. So how do we find out who cares about us, who likes our organization? And you can generally do that based on criteria and areas of interest. Now, of course, when you're talking about giving, we're talking about 3 important elements. We're talking about recency, we're talking about frequency, and we're talking about gift amount. So how recent was their gift? And of course, we can categorize that. We can drill down into those areas. We know that if someone gives within 18 months, that's a current giver.
Right.
Number 2, if someone hasn't given in 18 to 24 months, those are lapsed. And if anyone hasn't given in the last 2 years, they become lost individuals. Okay. Typically, we find that if someone hasn't given in the last 2 years, they have begun to no longer have an interest in you. So you don't want to continue to mail those people. And I can't tell you how many countless organizations, nonprofit organizations, continue to mail to individuals who haven't given to them in 3, 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and they continue to mail to those people.
I think they're hoping that maybe something that they do will grab their attention.
Something's going to motivate them. But
I've seen that happen before. I mean, I run a nonprofit, and I've seen there's some email campaigns that resonate with certain people, and there's some that don't. So you just never know, right? So why not just blast it out to everyone?
Well, here's the thing. That's one thing when you're doing email, but when you start to do the snail mail, direct mail, it costs money. And I can tell you that, and I've had people say to me, yeah, well, Jim, I mailed to somebody 110 times, and on the 111th time, I got a gift of $100. Well, if you actually tracked back all the expenses in those first 110, it probably would have cost you more than what their gift was on the 111th time.
But then wouldn't the argument be that on the 111th time, they're now an engaged person. So you've won that person over, even if it costs you $100 and you broke even.
And what you're generally trying to do is you are trying to get a second and third gift from the individual, but you really need to weigh the costs of that. Was it worth it? Because you are taking a risk. Do you know, if you could tell me, Jason, for sure that I was going to get a gift on the 111th time that I asked, I would mail to them 111 times, but that doesn't happen. You can't tell me that, like you can't predict the lottery winning numbers just as I can. So there's a good chance that you're going to spend a lot of money on people, and you'll get to the 111th, and they won't pay off for you. So you've got to be careful. Just because that one person gave on the 111th time doesn't mean that it justifies mailing to thousands of people for that.
So now when we're talking about marketing, just wanted to clarify, for a nonprofit, right? Conversion is really what we call building relationships or building partners, right? A lot of people look at it as getting a donation. Right. So they think, hey, I sent out this email and then I got $25 from this person. So yay, the email worked.
Yes.
Right. But they still don't know who that person is. That person's not engaged. So then maybe the next time and the next time and the next time they don't give. Right. And they just drop off. Right. So they become current to lapse to lost.
Right. That's right.
So really, when we're talking about marketing and we're talking about the hook story offer, we're talking about converting people, from a nonprofit sense. Really what we're talking about is yes, getting a gift is good, but what's even better than getting a gift is getting a partner.
Right. And second and third, the first gift that you get from an individual is not the most important gift.
Right.
It's the second gift.
So really what we're trying to do as nonprofit leaders is we're trying to build partners.
Right.
So what should I be doing when someone responds to a gift, from an email or a phone call or whatever? How do I get them to become a partner? Right.
Well, too often I use the analogy of dating, but really your first date with someone is not the most important. It's what you do the day after. A girlfriend of mine at one point in time taught me that it was so critical to contact the girl the next day after that. I don't know if those rules, it's been 40 years since I was dated anyone, but I know that it's important, and I believe that it's the same way with our partners now. We've got to move on that. In fact, I move with a thank you within 24 hours, out the door in 24 with a thank you for a gift. And then I slowly wean into, as I would in a courtship, I am sending individuals letters to let them know a little bit about our mission, vision, and values, so they'll buy in, they'll get to know us more, and then as they get to know us, I'll present opportunities for that second gift, because as I said, that second gift is the most important, because that's when you're building a friendship.
Right, and one of the best ways of continuing that relationship is through a vision dinner.
That's right.
Right. And so if you want to learn more about that, we've got a whole course on that. You can check that out at fundraisingmasterminds.net. But an event like a vision dinner is a great way to connect with people and build those relationships, because, everyone loves getting together for dinner and hanging out and talking, but you can't get together with 300 people. I mean, if you had every single, partner over to your house, you would not probably have enough days in a year to do that, and you'd be exhausted, right? So having an important event that allows you to connect with your partners is a critical piece of your marketing strategy.
Well, absolutely, Jason. I couldn't agree more. Well, now I've talked about recency, but let's talk about frequency. Now, frequency is how often someone gives. Now, if someone gives once a year, they're a partner, but they're not necessarily a friend or a long-term. Where we find true commitment is in frequency. So monthly partners are invaluable, not only to flatten your income and make it consistent, but you are also talking about building commitment with people. Now, I know that there's some individuals who can't give monthly. And in fact, I'll have people that will say, I can't give $50 a month, but I'll give you $1,000 a year. Well, of course, I don't do math in public, but I know enough to know that $50 a month is $600 a year. They want to give me $1,000 a year. I'll take the $1,000, thank you, and run with that. I want, though, that consistency. $1,000 gift is nice, but that doesn't build a friendship.
Yeah.
If they tell me I'll give you $1,000 a year, every year, for as long as you need my help, that to me is consistency.
Well, it's really interesting. I actually had a conversation with a person in the nonprofit that I run. I run a nonprofit called Reaching the Heart of Zambia, and we run a orphan school deep in the heart of Zambia, where we care for 300 students and teach them, get them off the street and try to re-educate them and get them back into society. It's a really, really cool ministry. And so we're always looking for monthly partners to come alongside of us and to sponsor children and to sponsor the school and to help, carry that load, right? And so we're always looking for that. And what was interesting is I was talking to this lady, she was wanting to know how she could help. She was clearly interested in the organization.
Right.
And I said, well, one of the biggest ways you can help is by sponsoring a child.
Sure.
And she's like, well, how much does it cost to sponsor a child? And I said, well, it's $38 a month to sponsor a child. And she thought about it for a while. She's like, okay. And she seemed interested.
Yeah.
Right. But then she came back a few weeks later when I think I called her to follow up or whatever. And she said, well, we're not interested in sponsoring a child because it's too much of a commitment. But we'll write you a check for $3,000.
Right.
And I was like, well, $38 a month times 12 is a lot less than $3,000.
Right.
And for some reason, she had this perception that, giving monthly was a commitment.
Right.
But writing a check for $3,000 wasn't.
Right.
And to me, that doesn't make sense to
me.
But
I know.
There's some kind of psychology there, right?
Right.
So I don't know exactly why that is.
A lot of times it's the way people's income comes in. A lot of people are dependent on sales in our world today.
Right.
And commissions are a big part of that. And so, they know that their income fluctuates, so their giving's got to fluctuate as well too. And so that happens a lot. And sometimes people will either have a little extra money at the end of the year, or their accountant will say, hey, you need to give a little bit more. And that's why no matter what, there's never a reason why you should ever not put out a letter at year end, because you never know if someone's going to give or not. And that includes to your monthly partners. Your monthly partners need to get a special gift appeal as well too. So now we've talked recency, we've talked frequency. The last area is gift amount and the size of someone's gift. Now, again, this may be common sense that, somebody who gives $1,000 would be treated differently than someone who gives $25. Or you may say, now, wait a minute, Jim. Isn't that being hypocritical? Doesn't Scripture tell us that we need to be treating everyone equally, whether it be the poor man or the rich man? Shouldn't we do that? Well, I have to say it really comes down to good stewardship. It comes down to how valuable is our time, and is it the best use of our time to trying to develop a relationship with 400 people, or is it best to maximize my time and focus in on 40 people? Right. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again, is that Jesus was a great example for us in that he ministered to the masses, but he spent a majority of his time with the 12, and even within that, Peter, James, and John. We need to be using those same principles of maximizing our time. So focusing in on the gift size, and that's not the perfect indicator, but it's one of the best that we have, in that if someone has the capability and gives $1,000, I want to invest my time and attention on that. And that's our critical few, isn't it? The 20% to bring in. We want to invest our time, and it's a good use of that.
Yeah, I mean, you had said in the past, 20% of the people give 80% to the organization. So that's one way that we can get that 20%.
Yeah, and we can target. Yeah.
Now, my question is, when you're talking about recency, frequency, and gift amount, right? Are we trying to find the 20% who give the most recent, who give the most frequent and give the most amount. Do you have specific numbers that you're going off of?
Well, actually, when we're talking about all three, a combination of all three, that could be as small as 10% or as large as 30%. So typically when we're factoring in the 20%, it really just is gift amount within that. But when you're looking at that...
What's the amount that you're looking for?
Well, once again, it really depends on what you're able to do. Your goal should always be to maximize. You should be continuing to chip away at your list to find out who are the people that are most interested in our organization. I'll give you an example. We started out 7 years ago, we started out with our direct mail list of over 100,000 people. We've actually whittled that down to 30,000 people. Now, you may say, well, Jim, why would you whittle down your list? Number one, it was more cost effective because we were mailing way beyond the areas of interest, and we were sending to people who weren't interested. We saved a lot of costs, and we've been able now to target it to 30,000 people who really love us versus 100,000 people who could care less.
So when you get 30,000 people getting a letter, maybe 25,000 respond. Instead of just a very small amount. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, how does that apply to the labor, influence, finances, and expertise life acrostic that we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
Because it's not all about getting them to engage more. We're trying to build relationships. Right. So how do we use this recency, frequency, and gift amount to get people more involved as partners?
Well, remember, now that is when you get further down into the funnel. You started us off, rightly so, with social media. Mm-hmm. Then we moved on to email marketing. Then we moved on to events. Then we moved on to phone calls. And then we moved on to personal visits with individuals. Typically, the life acrostic works with the last or the second to the last categories. So it isn't as much the life acrostic, because as warm as direct mail is, it's not as warm as vision dinners, events, phone calling, or visits. So there's still a somewhat of a distance. And for the most part, direct marketing is dealing with 80% that bring in 20% of your dollars.
Right.
So it's that inverted inverted numbers there with our direct marketing people.
So this is all great. So to summarize, our series on marketing, right? We use the analogy of a funnel,
right?
And Jim, if you could just wrap up, give us a good visual of how people are moving through this funnel, and ultimately, what we're trying to get to is a partnership.
Yes,
a face-to-face partner who is motivated, excited, and ready to partner with us in our mission, vision, and values, right? So that's the end result that we're trying to get. We're trying to get people to that place, right?
Yep.
So take us on this journey. Let's start from the very beginning. Let's start from the very top with social media.
Yeah, absolutely. The buzzwords in this day and age is what we refer to as moves management. What happens is that too often nonprofit organizations focus in on one area and they get siloed in. We've got to look at moving people through a continuum, and using our analogy, we're moving people down the funnel. So it starts with social media, because that's your broadest, that's your shotgun approach. Then we start to move to target marketing. We get them into direct marketing, which, yes, is emails, texts, phone calls, and snail mail, the direct mail. That's part of that. Then you move them.
They're going to learn about our story.
They're going to learn about our story from there. They're going to have an interest. And then we build the relationship and build the bond even stronger. We pull them into an event where they actually get to meet people live. They get to meet our executive director. They get to meet our board, our senior leadership. And they hear that vision up front.
But not just any event, but a specific event.
Well, we call that the Perfect Vision Dinner.
Right.
And we have created a curriculum called the Perfect Vision Dinner that we offer to a limited number of nonprofit leaders and organizations 2 times a year, and we are moving into one of those phases right now where we're making it available for individuals to be involved in that. But you are focusing in on an event.
Right. Well, and the Vision Dinner is so good because it gets people right there in front of you. And we have a very specific program where you walk people through why the organization exists, and we take them through an arc. Right. They get to have a meal, a very specific kind of meal. And there's a 2-hour and 15-minute program that we take people on this journey where they learn about why the organization exists, the mission behind the organization. They hear an update, they hear testimonies, they hear a dynamic speaker, and they're given the opportunity to partner, right, to join.
Right.
And that partnership could be financial, but it also could be volunteering. It could also be gifts and abilities and expertise. But we're asking people to join with us because we've given them the vision. So we're getting them excited about the vision, right? And that's what the Vision Dinner does.
Right.
So if you're interested in learning more about this process, we have a cool course about this called the Perfect Vision Dinner. And you can find out about that at fundraisingmasterminds.net. There's a link to that in the description below in this video or in this podcast. And I would encourage you to just look into it. It's actually a live course. So what that means is that you actually have to enroll. We offer it twice a year, one in the spring, one in the fall. And it is a video course, but then you meet with us every week, right? So the video is something that we've put together. And there's hours and hours of video that we share everything. I mean, if you like the stuff that you're hearing on this podcast, the video is a very well put together step-by-step representation of our development strategy. We go into a ton of detail.
It's intense.
And we also meet with you, right? Because we found that video courses are not enough. You know, we can't just let you watch 20 weeks of video.
Fall short. Yeah.
You're going to just get exhausted with all the stuff that we're going to ask you to do. So we actually meet with you every single week to have that accountability.
Right.
And you can ask us questions.
Yeah.
Right?
That coaching component is so important. Yeah.
Yeah. So the live course is really a combination of video training along with personal coaching. You get access to Gemini, and that's why it's limited because we can only work with so many people. And so we've only opened it up to 50 every single semester. And so if you're interested in that and it's the right time of the year, definitely go to Fundraising Masterminds and check it out.
Well, I hope you enjoyed what you heard today. We really, as we wrap up the third part of the 3-part series, I want to remind you to go back and check out the first 2 parts if you didn't see those. They are extremely valuable. I think you'll enjoy it as much as we did. Yeah. And I also want to remind you to subscribe to this channel and be sure to hit the bell to be reminded when the next video comes in. Make sure that you comment below whether you agreed with it or not, whether you have input, if there's some things that you found valuable that you think our community might like. Put those down in there because just our message isn't always enough. We want to hear from you and put some comments down there about things that have worked for you and things that didn't work, so our entire community can learn from that as well too. And we're out on social media. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram. We're always posting helpful tips and suggestions. And so on behalf of Jason and I, we are excited that we can bring you practical biblical principles for all things nonprofit. So until next week, we'll see you again. And please watch us on this channel and any podcast platform that's out there. Take care.